The FA Cup fourth round was back this weekend and there were some controversial moments in it. Ruben Amorim said that Harry Maguire's winner should have been overturned at the end of the game. Luke Moore, I put it to you that in the absence of VAR, has the FA Cup proved that we need VAR?
It's a good question, and I think what it's proven is that we've created quite the mess for ourselves by bringing VAR into football and implementing it the way we have, because I can kind of get on board with certain things needing intervention, maybe some binary things, offside, not offside, goal line tech, which is kind of separate from VAR, but we've had for some time anyway.
Which they didn't have at Birmingham City, of course.
No, he didn't. Well, and this is it. Like, this is what's stimulated this conversation, isn't it? Because you mentioned the Harry Maguire goal, clearly offside. But actually, there was 4 or 5 decisions. One around Joe Willock's goal in terms of whether it was over the line or not. We had a potential foul, a build-up of Nico González against Leyton Orient, and 1 or 2 others. So, to me, it feels like what's happening when top-level officials are being asked to officiate games without VAR, having previously been used to VAR, it seems to me to be making it more likely there's going to be mistakes. And we can use the Harry Maguire thing as an example. Assistant referees now are so used to VAR being the final arbiters of whether something's offside or not, that a lot of the time, they're told to not even flag. To me, it feels like being at that level of officiating, which is much derided, but nonetheless very competitive, to be very good at your job to get there, you're not using those muscles now. You're not exercising those muscles, using that skill.
It's proper split-second stuff.
And they're kind of maybe even just like subconsciously thinking, well, VAR will sort that out for me. An assistant referee sees Harry Maguire, substantially offside, and it's not flagged. And to me, that seems very puzzling. The problem is now, it's impossible to unring a bell. Right, that's happened now. There's no realistic prospect of it going back the other way.
I mean, they did. Was it in Norway? I think that they've scrapped it. One of the Scandinavian countries. They did actually. We're going to unring the bell.
But that's statistically going to be one of the worst leagues in Europe, isn't it?
Well, whether it is or not, that there is a precedent for it there. But I take your point.
But I think it's you're not realistically going to get a situation where a big top 5 league is going to unilaterally decide themselves to not have VAR anymore.
It would also be unwise, because at international tournaments they use VAR. So that is the way it goes. You're an outlier if you were to scrap VAR. I mean, I find it interesting that people often talk about it impacts fans' experiences at the stadium and the delays and the.
But that's the implementation of VAR, not VAR itself.
Indeed, but that is one of the big arguments against VAR. Personally, I just think to myself, as boring as it may sound, let's make sure that we get the decision right, or at least increase the chances of getting a decision right. VAR has done that, really. It's more frustrating when a decision is a poor one. They've said that this season in the Premier League that they feel like they've made 13 mistakes.
Rather than 20 the year before.
Indeed, at the same time of the season, exactly. But I think to myself, in particular what you said about offside, it is frustrating, whether it's a toenail offside or an eyebrow, or whatever it is.
But I think offside's fairly easy.
But you have to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, and
so if you're going to do that,
sure, I don't mind. So the implementation of VAR is down to kind of the incompetence at the top of the organisation. And it doesn't mean that it can't be well implemented. It just means it's not currently being well implemented, or it hasn't been in the past. Yeah. That, to me, is a separate issue. And I think the offside thing and the binary decisions that need to be made are also slightly separate, but they're not treated separately. So all the stuff is bracketed up as quote-unquote VAR, but a more sensible approach would be you've got 3 things. You've got the binary decisions, the non-binary decisions, and the
in-between decisions.
and the implementation.
Okay.
The implementation is solvable just by getting competent people.
Yeah.
The binary decisions, offside, goal line, whatever, that's either it is or it isn't. So that's kind of straightforward. And I don't think, bar the occasional ridiculous oversight by human error, like the Liverpool Spurs game that time famously, which is actually going to be on its way out anyway, because they're going to bring in semi-automated. So that solves that. The big issue around VAR isn't those decisions. The mistakes are made and it's frustrating, but the big issue around VAR is the fact the laws of the game elsewhere are not set up and weren't written in a time when VAR was a reasonable prospect. And a good example for that is if you forget the Harry Maguire thing on Friday night against Leicester, and you forget the goal line thing in the Newcastle game, and look at the Nico González decision in Leyton Orient versus Man City. For those who haven't seen it, Jamie Donnelly smashes one from miles out, goes off, Stefan Ortega goes in. If you haven't seen it by now, you're obviously not watching any football, because it's one of the most famous things to happen in the FA Cup for a number of years. The question is whether there's a foul on Nico González in the build-up. Now, I don't think there was, but some people think there was. The referee at the time obviously didn't think there was, and there was no intervention because there's no VAR. The problem with VAR in those situations is you are distilling down subjective decisions and bringing another layer in over the top. I would possibly say that although you can't unring a bell, you could possibly not have VAR for those subjective decisions unless the referee openly admits, when he's talked about that, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. Can someone help me? If he carries on and says, no, we're carrying on, what's going to happen at the moment? What's going to happen at the moment is possibly he's going to be asked to look at a screen, puts him under pressure, he possibly overturns it, but possibly doesn't. But the overarching problem is that so much of officiating in the modern game, and indeed the game generally for years and years, is subjective. And you just introduce a load of complicated stuff that no one's going to agree on. 50 people think it is, 50 people think it isn't, and we go back to the start where we were told that VAR would sort this. VAR's going to stop decisions being wrong. Jamie Carragher said, well, I'm in favour of it because I want the decision to be right. It's just not as simple as that, because referees referee the games differently. You watch a Premier League team play on the Saturday and the game's refereed one way, and then you watch a Champions League game on Wednesday with a foreign referee and it's refereed a different way. So it's very difficult to find a one-size-fits-all approach to video assistant referees outside of those binary offside, not offside, over the line, not over the line decisions. And that is a problem that we've learned over the last few years that it's just never going to be solved.
Guys, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I understand your points, Luke. I just, for me, I come down the side of would I get rid of VAR? No, I wouldn't, for a number of reasons. And you're saying that people, decisions are subjective. Yeah, of course. And maybe there is some honing. I mean, we saw, was it last week at Stamford Bridge when Chelsea played West Ham? Was Jarrod Bowen fouled in the build-up to the goal? Well, they deemed it was so far away, actually, that so much happened in between then that actually became irrelevant. So there are little areas where I think it can be tightened up. But for me, the whole thing with VAR is, does it improve the decisions made on the pitch in terms of the percentages of getting decisions right? Yes, it does. Your point about refereeing is subjective, in different countries people do different things. Well, if that's the case, it's still the case with VAR. I mean, I think in international tournaments, I think the standard refereeing is fairly acceptable. So I don't think that's...
But I think it was acceptable anyway, wasn't it?
Well, it was, yeah. But this isn't the point. Is VAR is not something different. The implementation of VAR is, I think, what annoys people particularly. And I think that's one of the gripes. The idea that it's kind of changed the rules, it's highlighted the rules, the offside rule being a perfect example. Is it daylight? Is it an arm? Should it be the feet? And all that kind of stuff. That brings that into the conversation. But I think it is the implementation that people get annoyed about. People always talk about the delays in stadiums. They talk about all this sort of stuff. For me personally, I actually I'm not that bothered. I think the only thing that would be annoying is if you're watching your team and you think you've scored the winning goal in the cup final or the goal to keep you up from relegation, and then that moment is then taken away. And yes, it is a sickener if it is finger you're offside or something.
But again,
like that.
you're not. But that's fine.
But that's what I think annoys people about VAR.
Yeah, but it depends on the reason for that goal being chalked off. That dramatic goal being chalked off to keep you in the league or to win you a cup. If it's for offside, there's not really a leg to stand on. What you're talking about there is just an improving of a very defined binary rule.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like the Nico González thing, the question is, if the referee waves play on, he's seen it, he's made a decision, he's refereed how he's always refereed, and he's seen it and waves play on, and it's a really, really important goal, and he's asked to look at a screen, or he's told this or he's told that, who's refereeing the game? That's the problem. It's being refereed by committee or refereed by someone who's not out there with getting the feel of the game.
Yeah, but if it is a genuine foul and the referee's missed it, that's what it's there.
But genuine foul's easy. That Nico González thing isn't a genuine foul, is it?
But we don't know what VAR would have said about that because it wasn't there. And so, there's so many people say, as I say, Amorim said himself about the Harry Maguire goal. He said, it should have been overturned. People are going, well, that shouldn't have counted, because now people have got themselves in the mindset of VAR.
No, but I think listen, you saw video replays before VAR on TV, and everyone would have known, if we've never existed in a world where VAR existed, everyone would still be saying the same thing today. That shouldn't have been a goal.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just a different implementation.
Well, indeed.
In summary, I just feel like everyone got so het up about the fact that some decisions were made before VAR that weren't great, and ignored the fact that I think it was 98% of refereeing decisions were correct, 94% or something of offside decisions were correct, and rather than that, just focused on the negatives about how we must bring VAR in at all costs. It's been brought in shoddily and pretty shabbily, but we're there now and we have to accept it. I'd love to see it improve. I kind of liked that the FA Cup weekend was a bit of a holiday from it, but at the same time I do understand, with 4 or 5 big flashpoints. But then the questions, I suppose, would we have had 4 or 5 refereeing flashpoints anyway before? If the answer to that is yes, then really nothing's changed. It's just the way the lens we view it through's changed. But I'd be interested in what the viewers think. I mean, stick it in the comments. Let us know what you think about it. VAR's here now. It's staying. We know that. Interesting to think about ideas of how it can be improved.